But I'm okay with converting to Judaism being difficult. You will have to move into a Jewish neighborhood, which is more expensive than say a black neighborhood or just your typical Goyish neighborhood. It's much more expensive than moving to Martin Luther King Boulevard, and there are hundreds of Martin Luther King Boulevards around the United States. So when Jews move into an area, they build it up, they improve it, and when you improve and build up, a community becomes more expensive. Part of being Jewish is working hard, not just working hard, but working smart, not just working hard and working smart, making enough money to pay your own way so that you're not a burden on the community. We don't want people coming in to Judaism who are going to be suckers on the community, who are going to leech. We only want people who can pay their own way. So unless you can pay your own way, unless you can hold down a job, unless you're mentally stable and financially stable and can afford to move into a Jewish neighborhood and to live like a mensch and to pay your synagogue dues and to pay for the tutoring that is required when you convert to Judaism and pay for the Beit Din meeting, these rabbis shouldn't just give of their time. Unless you can hold your end up and live like a mensch and be a mensch and hold down a decent job, you really shouldn't convert to Judaism, because I, for one, don't want you to.
Wow. And I thought I was the one making all the statements. Wow. Look, I can't argue with you because obviously you're a convert. All I can say is that, I went through it, and the woman who I was interested in, I watched her struggle, and I watched her do every mitzvah in the book, and I watched her give 20% of her net income to tzedakah, and I watched her keep Chalav Yisrael, and she had to schlep to the markets hundreds of miles away, or whatever it was, to get the Chalav Yisrael, and I watched her keep Glad, and I watched her keep Shabbos, and I watched her do every single thing, and she was doing more than what most frummies do, okay? And she was putting in more effort and self-sacrifice, and she was going over, clearing obstacles and hurdles that nobody else has to do. For instance, she had to deal with her family and tell them that, no, I'm not coming for Christmas this year, and that sent shockwaves all across Goyland, okay? And she had to put up with everything, right? And she had no one in her corner except for me and supposedly this rabbi was supposed to help her.
He wasn't.
He wasn't. She didn't care.
Your sponsoring rabbi isn't in your corner.
He wasn't in the corner at
any
all.
more than a judge in your DUI is in your corner.
Right.
He's a judge.
Right. And she went to yeshiva and she learned Torah every day, and I often learned with her, on the phone, and I was helping, and then she had to break her teeth to learn Hebrew and all these halachas, and she was doing it 110%, and she will never be a Jew because she doesn't have the money to move into his expensive neighborhood.
Why can't she get a decent paying job to enable
She has
her to
a decent paying
job? Why can't she work another job? It's tough to be Jewish unless you can work 2 jobs if necessary to accomplish this. Perhaps it's best you not become Jewish.
All right.
But I'm not taking a stand on your particular issue. I don't know the person. I do have Rachmanis as well. I have never made more than $50,000 in a year. I've often made $20,000, $30,000 a year. I've always been poor. I've always struggled. I've always had poor health since I was 21. Conversion was a very difficult task, but that's where I come from.
Okay, I can understand the difference between me and you on this. Okay, you're given a very conservative, party line thing, right?
Yeah.
And I can understand where you're coming from because I did the fucking work, right?
Yeah.
So anybody's not willing to do the fucking work, fuck them.
Yeah.
Right? That's basically what yours is. You know, I did the fucking work.
Yeah.
No one gave me a handout.
Yeah.
I had to kill myself to become Jewish.
Yeah.
I spent the money. I did the time. I did the work, and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Right? And I understand that. I hear that. I have no
Yeah.
problems with you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I can understand your viewpoint. I'm coming from the viewpoint of the one that failed.
Yeah.
And I'm not asking for her to be squeezed in on some sort of loophole. I'm not asking for that. Right? I'm saying something. I'm just saying this is a fucking bitch, okay?
Yeah.
She failed. She tried for 2 years to become Jewish, and she failed because she didn't have the money. My personal thing is, I think Jewish houses are too expensive.
Yeah.
That's my personal thing. I think the Jewish community needs to really re-examine what we do, because even for someone who's Jewish, like me, I can't afford to live in this fucking neighborhood, right? Because it's too much money for me, right? I can't live... let me tell you something. We were talking about incomes.
Yeah.
I saw something. At one time, I was making in the upper 2% of the country.
Yeah.
2%.
Yeah.
I was making more than 98% of the people in this country. This is for real. I can't afford. I couldn't even at that time afford to buy a house in my neighborhood. I couldn't afford to buy an outhouse in my neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And the only ones you're going to find are in front of the buildings that are going up for $5 million, right? You can't. I can't afford shit here, right? And it's unbelievable because basically Judaism says, ooh, you need to make in the top 1%.
Yeah, it's very demanding to be Jewish and to live in a Jewish neighborhood and to keep up with the Schwartzes.
Right, and I think there's a problem with the system. I think there's fundamentally, systematically wrong that a Jew has to make more than 99% of the people in the country, right? We have to make the most amount of money, right? Just so we can live in a Jewish neighborhood and walk to shul. I think it's wrong. I think something is fundamentally wrong with the system right there. That's my opinion. And you certainly don't have to agree with it, and you haven't.
I'm also thinking about Orthodox Jewish day schools. Like, I was a really poor student in elementary and high school. I graduated with an 1135 SAT score, so not very good. At a 3.3 GPA, not very good. I cheated my way through chemistry class and several science classes. I cheated, and I think I even cheated in some math classes. So I was not very righteous. There is a point. Now I'm confessing my sins, and yes. So I'm thinking about now going to Orthodox Jewish day school. Those kids, I went to school from 7:30 to 2:30. Those kids go to school from 7:30 to 5. I mean, they take half a day in Torah subjects, in Limudei HaKodesh, in holy subjects, and half a day in secular subjects. I mean, your average IQ is simply not going to be able to sit still and stay in school that long. You have to have an above-average IQ and an above-average ability to sit still and an above-average ability to fit into a community where, like, you'll often feel in Jewish life the community's like right on top of you. Like, feel very claustrophobic. Like, the average kid is going to have a heck of a hard time making it through your average Orthodox Jewish day school. What do you think?
I would agree with that. There's a tremendous pressure to fit in, and I happen to know a lot of kids who don't fit in, and they end up seeing what happens to them. It's not good, you know. And there's things that Jewish yeshivas are not really good at. They're not in tune with like people with special needs, special ed kids. We're not good with that, you know. Autistic kids, for one, we're just a failure with.
Yeah.
You know, people with AS, Asperger's, and autism, we're terrible with that.
AIDS.
I don't know about that.
Okay, neither do I.
But I know that, like I know people whose kids are autistic, and they had to sell them in public school,
right?
Because there's no services provided, and the state takes care of it. You know, we have some problems. You know, we're not. Here's a problem. This is like a whole thing. You know, if your parents are Baal Tshuva and they just join and they send the kids don't have any real learning at home. They didn't come from that background. We don't have special schools for children of Baalei Tshuva. So we stuff them in the same schools with the kids who grew up speaking 3 languages at home, already know Aleph Beis, already have seen some Chumash by the time they're 5. And they stuff these kids so the Baal Tshuva kids might be really smart and they might be really interested in learning, but they're like way behind the first day of school, and they get just turned off. And they end up saying "fuck it," and they end up just rejecting the whole thing.
And what about the children who make pornography?
That's a real problem.
No, high school we had 3 kids who made a porn movie, and they then shared it with the whole high school. And I don't know. I guess people were so uptight that the girl who starred in this movie and the 2 boys who co-starred with her, they all had to like leave the school.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that.
We really don't make enough allowance for kids who want to star in
that was at a Jewish school?
Yeah, at Milken High School.
Oh, Milken.
So we don't make enough allowance. We give such a hard time to kids who star in pornography who want to go to a Jewish day school.
All right, so let's just finish up the whole conversion thing. If anybody has any questions on the conversion, because my whole point is before you get involved in it, know what you're getting involved in. It's going to mean moving into a Jewish neighborhood, right? And not everyone who has the interest to become Jewish is going to make it to the finish.